James Cleveland really die from AIDS?
Whoa.
At 54, James Cleveland's son has revealed shocking truths that have shattered the polished image of his father. Everyone thought he was perfect, but a dark secret was hidden behind the praise. Dark allegations of horrifying violence, betrayal, and manipulation are now out in the open. What hidden truths did Cleveland keep? And how would his son's revelations change everything we thought we knew? Prepare to witness the truth as it finally comes to light, and it's more disturbing than anyone could have imagined. Under Dorsey's wing. From a young age, Cleveland showed a natural talent for music. By just 8 years old, he was already performing solos at church, impressing everyone with his voice. The choir director, Thomas A. Dorsey, recognized his potential early on. Dorsey, often called the father of gospel music, took Cleveland under his wing, helping him refine his skills and understand how powerful music could be in bringing people together. Cleveland was inspired not just by Dorsey, but also by another gospel legend, Roberta Martin. Martin's influence on Cleveland was profound, shaping his unique style. Inspired by her, Cleveland began to write his own songs, setting the stage for his future success in gospel music. But Cleveland's early years were tough. Growing up during the Great Depression, his family struggled to make ends meet, and they couldn't afford a piano. Undeterred, young Cleveland used his imagination, practicing on the windowsill of their home, pretending the gaps between the wood were piano keys. He dreamed of playing a real piano, and eventually his parents saved enough to buy an upright piano. This moment was life-changing for Cleveland, allowing him to truly develop his musical talents. During high school, Cleveland continued to impress with his music. He joined a local gospel group called the Thorn Gospel Crusaders, where he started composing songs that quickly gained attention. His talent shined brightly when one of his early compositions, "Grace is Sufficient," was performed at a Baptist convention in 1948. This performance caught the eye of Roberta Martin, who published his work, officially launching his professional career in gospel music. Cleveland also connected with the Soul Winners for Christ, a group led by his friend Jesse Jimerson Phillips, based out of Greater Harvest Baptist Church in Chicago. This group became another important chapter in Cleveland's life, reinforcing his dedication to gospel music and his faith. But things were not always smooth for Cleveland. A major setback occurred when he strained his vocal cords while performing with a local group. This injury could have ended his singing career. But Cleveland didn't give up. Instead, he shifted his focus to playing the piano and composing music, finding a new path through his challenges. But this wasn't the end of his troubles. His journey was just beginning. Instead of letting it hold him back, he turned it into his trademark, using that distinct sound to add emotion and depth to his songs. This unexpected twist in his journey ended up being one of the things that set him apart. By 1950, James was ready to make his mark on gospel music. He joined the Gospelaires, a group led by Noralice McKissick and Bessie Folk, which aimed to modernize traditional gospel songs. James's fresh arrangements of classics like "Give Me That Old Time Religion" brought new life to these familiar tunes, but the group didn't last long, and when it disbanded, James found himself at a crossroads. However, his next opportunity was just around the corner. Roberta Martin, one of James's early influences, saw his talent and brought him on as a composer and arranger. It was during this time that James produced "Peace Be Still," a powerful performance that catapulted him into the spotlight. His growing fame led him to collaborate with his childhood friend Albertina Walker, another pivotal figure in his career. Albertina Walker had founded a dynamic gospel group called the Caravans. She saw James not just as a talented musician, but as someone who could wear many hats: composer, arranger, pianist, occasional singer, and even a narrator. The Caravans were filled with stars, including Shirley Caesar, Setta George, and Inez Andrews, who would all go on to have successful solo careers. James's involvement with this powerhouse group helped shape the future of gospel music. In 1954, Walker convinced States Records to let James record with the Caravans, marking his first time in a recording studio. This was a turning point, leading to several successful recordings with the group until the label shut down in 1957. But this wasn't the end of their collaboration. James continued to work with Walker, producing hit albums like "Reunion" in 1977 and "Please Be Patient With Me" in 1979, which earned her first gold record. But the real surprise was still to come. James's career took another leap in 1959 when he ventured out as a solo artist. His cover of Ray Charles's hit "Hallelujah, I Love Her So" and his blend of blues riffs into his music added a new flavor to gospel. His rendition of "The Love of God," performed with the Voices of Tabernacle from Detroit, became a major hit and landed him a significant record deal, opening the door to even greater opportunities. In 1962, James signed with Savoy Records, a well-known jazz label. This was a big step for him, marking a new chapter filled with soulful gospel recordings, many of which were captured live. These performances not only highlighted his unique voice, but also his incredible ability to connect with audiences on a deep, emotional level. His career was on a steady climb, but this wasn't the end of his challenges. Throughout the 1960s and 1970s, James became a leading figure in gospel music. He stood out for his ability to mix traditional gospel with modern musical elements, and his deep, gravelly voice became iconic. People didn't just love him for his music. They were inspired by his lyrics and the passion he poured into every performance. But despite his success, James's path wasn't without its ups and downs. The early hardships, the strained voice, and the constant pressure of the music world were always present. Yet he pushed through every challenge with his faith and dedication, leaving a lasting impact on gospel music. But the biggest challenge was yet to come. Cleveland was now set to work with others and change gospel music forever. Chart-topping hymns. Reverend Lawrence Roberts, pastor of the First Baptist Church in Nutley, New Jersey, had a vision of capturing the lively energy of church worship through live recordings. Teaming up with James Cleveland and the angelic choir of Nutley, they released several albums that brought this vision to life. One of the most famous was Peace Be Still, released in September 1963. This album became a massive success, selling thousands of copies and earning Cleveland his first gold record. It stayed on the Billboard charts for over 15 years, making a lasting impact on gospel music. After this success, Cleveland moved to Los Angeles to work as the minister of music at Grace Memorial Church of God in Christ. Here, he worked closely with talented musicians, including keyboardist Billy Preston, and kept his connection with the angelic choir of Nutley. This move to Los Angeles helped boost his popularity even more. Cleveland then formed his own group, the James Cleveland Singers, which originally included members like Odessa McCassell, Georgia White, Eugene Bryant, and Billy Preston. By 1965, the group had grown, adding Clyde Brown and Charles Barnett, and began touring across the U.S. and even internationally. Their performances became highly anticipated events, drawing large crowds and rave reviews. The partnership between Cleveland and his group led to some beloved recordings such as Heaven That Will Be Good Enough for Me, Two Wings, and The Lord Is Blessing Me Right Now. Over time, other gifted singers like Marva Hines and soprano soloist Cleo Kennedy joined the group, adding their voices until Cleveland's passing. But this wasn't the peak of his influence. Cleveland was just getting started. To further expand his reach, Cleveland founded the Southern California Community Choir, SCC, in the mid-1970s. The choir quickly became a major force in gospel music. Their work together earned Cleveland his first Grammy Award in 1975 for the album In the Ghetto. This was just the beginning of a series of successful collaborations between Cleveland and the SCC. Over the next 2 decades, from 1970 to 1990, they released several impactful albums, including the 1979 hit A New Day, featuring the song God Is, and the 1981 album Where Is Your Faith. These works helped solidify the choir's reputation in the gospel music world. Cleveland's last Grammy was awarded posthumously in 1991 for the album Having Church, which included his memorable rendition of Tremaine Hawkins's What Shall I Do? In November 1970, Cleveland also took a bold step by founding the Cornerstone Institutional Baptist Church in Los Angeles. Though it started small, the church grew under his leadership to include thousands of members. Cleveland's last Grammy was awarded posthumously in 1991 for the album Having Church, which included his memorable rendition of Tremaine Hawkins's What Shall I Do? In November 1970, Cleveland also took a bold step by founding the Cornerstone Institutional Baptist Church in Los Angeles. Though it started small, the church grew under his leadership to include thousands of members. The church choir's first album, The Voices of Cornerstone, released in 1980, featured memorable songs like Jesus, Lover of My Soul, and A Praying Spirit, written by Elber Nita Twinkie Clark and popularized by the Clark sisters. Their second album, My Expectations, released in 1981, also gained considerable attention. But this wasn't the end of his impact. Cleveland's influence stretched far beyond his own choir. Beyond his church and his choir, Cleveland was a strong supporter of other gospel artists and groups. He worked closely with groups like the Donald Vales Choraleers, the Harold Smith Majestics, the Los Angeles Gospel Messengers, and the New Jerusalem Baptist Church Choir. Through these collaborations, he helped create timeless gospel hits such as Lord Help Me to Hold Out and I Don't Feel No Ways Tired. The James Cleveland Singers also evolved over the years, seeing various changes and new additions since their start in 1964. Always staying relevant in the ever-changing gospel scene. By 1965, James Cleveland's musical group had expanded with new members, such as Clyde Brown. They took their powerful gospel music on tours across the United States and even abroad, sharing their inspiring songs with audiences around the world. During these tours, they recorded some memorable hits, such as Heaven That Will Be Good Enough for Me, Two Wings, and The Lord Is Blessing Me Right Now. But Cleveland's influence went beyond gospel music. He worked with famous artists such as Aretha Franklin, Ray Charles, and Elton John. One of his most notable collaborations was with Aretha Franklin on her 1972 album Amazing Grace. This live album, recorded at the New Temple Missionary Baptist Church in Los Angeles, won a Grammy and sold millions of copies, becoming one of the most famous gospel albums of all time. The recording of Amazing Grace was also filmed by director Sidney Pollack, but due to a technical issue, the footage was not released for 47 years. The audio and video were out of sync, and it wasn't until modern technology allowed producer Alan Elliott to fix the problem that the film was finally released in April 2019. When it was released, it introduced Cleveland's incredible performance to a whole new generation, proving that his impact on gospel music was still alive and well. Cleveland's reach wasn't limited to just music. He also made his mark on the film industry with the 1983 documentary Gospel. This film featured performances by Cleveland and the Southern California Community Choir, along with other gospel legends such as Walter Hawkins, the Mighty Clouds of Joy, Shirley Caesar, and the Clark Sisters. The film's soundtrack became a bestseller and highlighted Cleveland's important role in bringing gospel music to a wider audience. By 1968, Cleveland had firmly established himself as a leading figure in gospel music, but he wasn't content to rest on his laurels. He wanted to do more to support and grow the gospel community, which led him to co-found the Gospel Music Workshop of America, GMWA, with Albertina Walker. The GMWA quickly became a hub for aspiring gospel musicians, providing a space for singers and choirs from around the country to learn, perform, and connect. The workshop grew quickly, with more than 150 chapters and 30,000 members, helping to launch the careers of future gospel stars like John P. Key, Kirk Franklin, and Yolanda Adams. But Cleveland's dedication didn't stop there. He was always looking for new ways to make gospel music shine. Cleveland's final recording with the GMWA was from its 1989 convention in New Orleans, which marked the end of a long and successful partnership. Known for his ability to blend pop and soul into gospel, Cleveland found success turning mainstream hits into gospel favorites. In 1975, he took the Gladys Knight and the Pips song, You're the Best Thing That Ever Happened to Me, and reimagined it as Jesus is the Best Thing That Ever Happened to Me, for which he received a Grammy nomination. He also put his gospel spin on Barry Manilow's I Write the Songs on his Grammy-winning 1977 album, Live at Carnegie Hall. Later, he transformed Whitney Houston's Didn't We Almost Have It All into Aren't You Glad You Know the Lord, recorded in 1989 with backing vocals by GMWA. From 1985 to 1988, Cleveland even tried his hand at the record business with his own label, King James Records, which was distributed by Sound of Gospel Records, Inc. Through his label, he released several albums, including Billy Preston's first gospel album and recordings with the Los Angeles Gospel Messengers. His first release, Praise 88, was especially well received. Cleveland also used his label to spotlight new talent through his James Cleveland Presents series, which featured artists such as the Craig Brothers and the Harmonizing Four. Unfortunately, the label had to close when its distributor went out of business, marking another difficult time in Cleveland's career. As Cleveland's career soared, hidden parts of his life started to show, revealing a complicated man. The creative path of James Cleveland. James Cleveland's deep involvement with the Gospel Music Workshop of America, GMWA, and his talent for turning popular songs into gospel standards made a huge impact on gospel music. He had a unique way of blending different music styles into gospel, which helped expand the genre and showed off his creative genius. Whether through his workshops, recordings, or his own record label, Cleveland's influence kept growing, making him a key figure in the world of gospel music. Cleveland's story isn't just about his public successes. There are many sides to his life and career that are less known. Throughout his career, he earned many awards, including multiple Grammy Awards that highlighted his contributions to gospel music. In 1974, Cleveland, along with the Southern California Community Choir, won his first Grammy for Best Soul Gospel Performance for the album In the Ghetto. This win boosted his reputation as a major force in gospel music. A few years later, in 1977, he won another Grammy for Best Soul Gospel Performance, Traditional, for his live album, James Cleveland Live at Carnegie Hall, which captured the energy and spirit of his live shows. His Grammy wins continued in 1980 with an award for Best Soul Gospel Performance, Traditional, for his work with the Charles Fold Singers on the album "Lord, Let Me Be an Instrument." This Grammy showed his talent for bringing together different artists to create something truly special. His final Grammy came in 1990, awarded after his death, for the album Having Church with the Southern California Community Choir. This album featured his unforgettable performance of Tremaine Hawkins's "What Shall I Do?", proving his lasting influence in gospel music. But this wasn't the whole story. Behind the awards and music was a more complicated tale. Even as Cleveland faced serious health challenges, including respiratory problems that eventually took away his ability to sing, he stayed dedicated to his faith and music. Just days before his death, he delivered a moving message to his church, Cornerstone Institutional Baptist Church, sharing how his voice had miraculously returned that morning. His death on February 9, 1991, was a huge loss to the gospel music world. His funeral at the Shrine Auditorium in Los Angeles was attended by over 8,000 people, showing just how many lives he had touched through his music and ministry. Cleveland was laid to rest at Inglewood Park Cemetery in Inglewood, California. His legacy lives on through his music and the many artists he inspired. However, his passing also revealed a complex legal battle over his estate since he didn't leave a will. One of those involved in the legal disputes was Andre Cleveland, who saw himself as a foster son to James. Andre had lived with James from a young age and was listed as a dependent on his tax returns, but the court denied his claims, stating there were no legal reasons that prevented James from formally adopting him once Andre became an adult. But this wasn't the most troubling part of Cleveland's story. In addition to Andre's claims, Jean Irvin, a member of Cleveland's church, publicly stated that she was the mother of Cleveland's only biological child, Leon Cleveland, born in 1965. Her claims added another layer of complexity to the ongoing legal disputes, highlighting the tangled nature of Cleveland's personal life. The struggles over his estate and the claims of those who were part of his inner circle painted a picture of a man whose private life was much more complicated than his public persona. Worse still, darker aspects of Cleveland's life began to come to light after his death. Christopher Harris, who had been a member of Cleveland's choir, alleged that he suffered abuse from Cleveland, starting when he was just 13 years old. The case was eventually settled out of court, but it raised serious concerns within the church and gospel music community about Cleveland's relationships with young men. These revelations introduced a troubling side of Cleveland's life that many were unaware of. Cleveland's death was officially due to heart failure, but the controversies that followed painted a more complex and troubling picture of his legacy. While he was celebrated as a trailblazer in gospel music, his story is a reminder that even those who bring great joy and inspiration to others can have deeply flawed and complicated personal lives. Cleveland's contributions to gospel music were undeniably significant, but the darker aspects of his life have made his legacy one that is both celebrated and questioned. What do you think? Does the brilliance of James Cleveland's contributions to gospel music outweigh the troubling aspects of his personal life? Leave your comments, and subscribe for more discussions like this.